episode of Symbolic Reacts, and today we are going to be going over something pretty cool. 50 insane U.S. Army facts you did not know about from the InfoGraphics show. Really great show. Check them out. Subscribe. Give them a comment. And actually, I've actually already looked into a few minutes into this one. I already like this first little factoid right here. It's so cool. Let's get right into it.
Just a few months after the devastating attack on Pearl Harbor, panic was in the air. People imagined another attack, but this time on the City of Angels, a place which was churning out aircraft with impressive speed.
And actually, I love World War II, so I've always anything World War II I'd love to watch, read, and so I've actually already know from World War II, like even Pearl Harbor, before Pearl Harbor happened, they for sure thought that if the Japanese attacked, they were going to attack LA first. And so they had actually built up just like so much defenses like in LA to defend an attack and to, try and stop them there.
Folks envisioned the Hollywood Hills on fire, people fighting in the streets, and then it came, that fateful day. February 25th, coastal radar picks up an unidentified flying object about 125 miles west of Los Angeles. Oh God.
Oh, is this going to be the LA thing? Yeah,
this is straight for the city. Half an hour later,
I know this from History Channel.
Air raid sirens fill the air. Citizens of LA watching horror as anti-air 50 caliber rounds fire above their heads. The Japanese are...
Yeah, okay, I actually know exactly what this is. This is what they thought this was a UFO. Actually, like you'll see this on like a lot of old UFO shows on History Channel or from a lot of different things, and they always talked about like they unloaded like 1,400 rounds, like which is a lot for back then, and you're talking about boom, 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 like AA guns. I mean, like, the sky was just lit up, and they actually said 5 people died. Like, 5 people died when this happened, just from, like, how crazy it was. Just, like, 3 in car accidents, and I think it was, like, 2 heart attacks or something. And if you think then, with the weapons they had, probably most people who were alive then had never seen anything like that. And even think today how scary it'd be if you were... And then, like, the whole military opened up with all types of, anti-air missiles and stuff that we have today. But for them back then, it, like, even just, AK guns were, like, AA guns were, like, really, it would have just been a crazy sight everywhere. Like, the beginning of Band of Brothers or something when they're jumping in to France. Like, I'm sure it would have just been a crazy... So you could only imagine how much, like, how scary that was for people. And I'm sure they thought the war had found them, And the fact is that they don't even know what it was, but, people a UFO or UAP, as you'd call it today, when this had happened. So it was really just, like, a crazy situation. And but people, it's not, like, confirmed true that it was a UFO, but something definitely happened that night because they weren't just shooting at birds. I'm sure that's been an excuse too, maybe birds or something like that. But I doubt it.
They imagine their houses on fire, being shot to pieces. This was the Battle of Los Angeles, and we imagine many of you have never even heard of it. It's just one fact of many you're going to hear today. It's part of a history lesson that will blow you away. Settle in, secure your position.
Rise Kingdoms for PC.
Just imagine that even today, walking down the street and just seeing, like, the military open up on one aircraft in the sky and just not be able to hit it. And even back then, they say they hit it a bunch of times, it just didn't do anything.
And watch the facts fly by. Number 50, Battle of Los Angeles continued. Okay, so we couldn't just leave it there. You're thinking, there was a Battle of Los Angeles and no one even told me about it. I must have missed that bit in my high school.
Oh, maybe I'm getting confused. Maybe this was...
It's certainly true.
Maybe there was 2 times it happened.
Move an aircraft carrier closer to the USA. And
because that was the picture. That for sure was the picture of supposedly what the UFO or UAP, whatever you want to call it, was. Supposedly that's a picture from it, so they had, so imagine seeing that. I mean, they had spotlights everywhere. They probably thought it was like a plane or a I don't want to say balloon because that'd be way too slow.
I must have missed that bit in my high school history class. It's not quite as it seems. It's certainly true that people feared that the Japanese might move an aircraft carrier closer to the USA and start an invasion from there. In Oakland, schools were closed because of this fear. There were blackouts too. In Seattle, businesses were smashed.
And that's actually, I mean, even on just a different note, that's why we were so lucky in Pearl Harbor, because the whole aim of that was to take out the aircraft carriers. And if they had, they would have been able to pull right up to Los Angeles and, you know, aircraft carrier. If we had no aircraft carriers left, that was like, you know, the new way of fighting then, and we weren't going to win.
Smashed up by angry mobs because they left their lights on, making them a bullseye for fearsome Japanese bombers. The situation got hairier. On February 24, 1942, when U.S. Naval Intelligence warned that an attack might. At 2:25 a.m. the next day, the siren sounded and a blackout was ordered. The 37th Coast Artillery Brigade started firing 50 caliber machine guns and anti-aircraft shells. Imagine being there. Imagine seeing that as you rubbed your sleepy eyes.
Right? That's what I'm saying. That would have been crazy.
One Japanese plane was spotted.
And you know, 5 people died. I think it's even, I feel like even really imagine, because you know, back then, like, what, you know, today, movies, TV, even our parents, our grandparents, they saw Vietnam and, you know, all these different, like, all these displays of power, and he was even, like, crazy for them to see that, when, like, Vietnam on TV was, like, such a gruesome sight, and really, like, you know, anti-war back then, just because, like, they'd never seen stuff like that. And but even with us today, with, you know, Call of Duty and video games and movies and, like, everything we've seen through media that way, would definitely desensitize us somewhat to what an event like that happening would be, you know. But back then, like, what did they have? You know, like, the movies didn't show, you know, certainly not in, you know, 40s, because even all the major war movie, all the major, like, World War movies didn't come out until the 50s and 60s, you know, so they hadn't even seen that. So the closest thing they would have would be, like, you know, the Old West stories like that, turn of the century, you know, like, but it was more of, like, from what they had seen of the military, it was like charges and cavalry, and, you know, like, that was probably what they thought of as military might back then. So, you know, to see this whole new way of being, you know, really discovered and used at that time. And, well, actually, no, that can't be totally true, because World War I, you know, they certainly, but even, you know, planes were in their infancy in World War I. So I'm sure the reason why it was such a big event, why they still talk about it, is because it must have been crazy for normal happening in their city, you know. So, but even though I'm definitely a little bit wrong about that during that very stressful hour with you know, World War I being such a terrible war itself, but still 2 different wars, you know.
Hearing gunfire. The next day, the headline or
try to redeem myself.
But what had actually happened? Some media said war,
you know,
and others called it a false alarm. But the people were rightly concerned. Was there something the government wasn't telling them? They had to wait to get answers. After the war ended, the Japanese stood up and said, "Hey guys, we never went anywhere near Los Angeles. You were all tripping." To cut a long story short,
that was another reason why I was like,
was an off-course weather balloon. The Battle of Los Angeles had
get me my tin hat.
In part panic, part missing balloon. Some folks said the object was an alien UFO, but we won't get into that. Okay, so that was more of a story than a hard fact. And there will be many more insane stories, but let's have a look at some facts too. The U.S. Army is massive, absolutely massive. In total, it contains around 1.4.
Wow, look at these beasts! Hey, don't you laugh at me. I'm like you. I'm
Give you some money, you'll be level 45 real quick.
Oh, well, it's just because he's young. Take it,
and he hasn't pulled out that wallet yet.
Help me with the farm.
Peasant. Don't you know kings pay to play?
Now come and worship me, you guys. King of Avalon.
Yeah, that easy, huh? He just farmed. Didn't you see that? He just farmed, guys. And he got the dragon in like 3 seconds.
Mercedes-Benz is turning electric completely on its head. The EQB
We're
from Mercedes-Benz.
electric. Like the other guy. Not different. But the same. But kind of also different.
Million personnel. A few more people than the country of Estonia. But it's not the biggest army. That would be the North Korean army, at around 2.2 million personnel. Nope.
Yeah, but, you know...
For 48.
True.
Believe it or not,
Definitely
the US
true.
Army is actually older than the US. Americans celebrate the birth of their nation on July 4th. The year the nation was established was
that'd be a scary war.
1776. But the date that the army was established was June 14,
But I'm still rooting for
1775. It makes sense, really, if they were going to kick out those damned imperialist Brits, they needed an army to do it. Well, the French helped a bit too, as did some heroic foreign military leaders that we'll talk about later. Number 47. We just said that the army employs around 1.4 million people, with some of them being in the reserves. Still, that means it's the second largest employer in the USA behind Walmart, which employs around 2.3 million people. Amazon's a long way behind, employing something close to 800,000 people. Number 46. 16 of the 45 U.S. presidents have served in the army.
Hey, they give out a lot of jobs, isn't that great?
Now we're served in the army in both.
But that's kind of more service.
Theodore Roosevelt, the only president to have won the Distinguished Medal
I'd say
for his
no, that's
service
more like that's
during the Spanish-American War.
I feel like that's more on the person more than the like. I wouldn't say that's like the government hiring everybody. I'd say that's like those people volunteering to serve. You know, because they're not going into it for the money. That's for sure.
You led a desperate and gallant charge.
But hey, you know, that's why we thank you for that. Because that's, you know, that's amazing.
San Juan Hill risked life and limb under a barrage of enemy fire, and then he jumped into a trench and killed a man, making
sorry, there's glare.
behind it to advance.
Trying to see the screen.
We guess some of you have at one point owned a pair of Ray-Ban sunglasses, but we also guess that you they were a brainchild of the U.S. Army. That's right, there used to be a thing called the
United States Army is hella fashionable. What up?
Corps, which was the flying part of the U.S. Air Force was created. In 1929, there was a guy that was tasked with working with glasses producers to make glasses that would make life easier for pilots. His name was John A. McCready. Colonel John A. McCready. He was up to the task.
He knew how to make a pair of glasses
that wouldn't fog up like goggles, and at the same time would reduce the glare from the bright blue sky. In the late 30s, the Ray-Ban aviator glasses were patented, and the rest is history. Number 44.
Making influencers look good in all their Instagram posts. Who knew? Started out for the battlefield, up in fashion. But hella functional too. I'm not gonna lie. They are nice guys. I'm pretty sure these are. Yeah, they are.
Was fighting the Ray-Bans in the American Revolutionary War. While the vehicle looked pretty cool, it never really did what it was supposed to do. That was to affix explosives to British warships in New York Harbor. They never pulled it off. And that poor old turtle sank into the sea when it was a boarded vessel. Number 40.
That's cool. That was like the early. That would be like the really earliest of like, you know, some Navy SEAL stuff right there. That's pretty cool, man. I'm just imagining like a Navy SEAL in 1776.
It's thought that about 2.1 million soldiers
that's a pretty funny sight
during the Civil War. What's maybe surprising is that about a quarter of them were immigrants. If you count the sons of immigrants that fought, then it's closer to half the Army's population. Number 42. During the Second World War, the brand Coca-Cola was already a kind of symbol that represented the American way. And you know what? American soldiers fighting abroad really pined for this stuff. Most of them couldn't get their hands on Coke. Coca-Cola Company President Robert W. Woodruff heard about this and decided it wasn't good enough, so he made a promise. He told soldiers that
I'm going to give you boys Coke if I die.
5 cents, but he needed the help of General Dwight Eisenhower to get the Cokes to them. Together, they cooked up a plan to get those
Dwight, we gotta get some Coke out there, man.
Coca-Cola opened up a bunch of plants overseas. but it went one step farther when it introduced people called technical observers. These co-workers wore army uniforms and looked the part, but they weren't actually military. They were only there to make sure that the plants were built and the soldiers got their fix.
That's hilarious. They had uniforms and everything. They literally had uniform. Did they have ranks with those uniforms, I'm guessing? Man, everybody had a uniform in World War II. That's pretty interesting. I mean, that's kind of cool. I mean, you know, people like, but yeah, I mean, that's kind of, I think that was smarter. It was really, like, a lot smarter. Made everybody, like, feel like they were, you know, pulling for the same team. And that's smart.
With one soldier writing this letter, dear folks, you'll never guess what I had.
Even the dude just watching the Coke cans.
Drink easy. Not whiskey, not gin, not Cavados, not beer, but good old-fashioned in the bottle that's made to fit the hand. Suffice it to say, Coca-Cola did okay out of the deal too. It had entered Europe and it wasn't about to leave. Number 41. There are some sources the U.S. Army pioneered modern...
And who doesn't love a good, like, Coca-Cola? Or if Pepsi's your thing, you know. I'm not gonna, you know, if Pepsi's your thing, it's disgusting, but, you know, whatever. But who doesn't love just the old, like, or Sprite with, like, the old glass, you know, you can, like, find them in, like, you know, I don't know, I always used to find them in, like, the place called the Apple Bin in New York. And they'd always have, like, all the old, but you can find them all, I mean, you can find them a lot of places. But honestly, or birch beer. Man, I love birch beer.
Guerrilla warfare, but that's debatable. A lot of armies...
I haven't had a good birch beer in ever.
Francis Swamp Fox Marion was an excellent guerrilla warfare tactician. This guy also credited with being the man that led the...
What? Led the first special forces. Mobile game galore.
The first special forces in the U.S. got his nickname because he'd take militiamen into the swamps where they'd wait in hiding for loyalists and British regulars.
Was that like the Patriot?
Regular way, but would jump out of the swamps and kill. His men, who weren't paid and supplied their own arms and sometimes food, frightened the hell out of the enemy. So you don't get into trouble. We should also add that he was despised by many and criticized for being more than harsh to his men and someone who committed many atrocities. Number 40.
Well, they cleaned that image up in the movie.
2020, 17,000.
They're like, he really cares about his sons, you know? They're like, nah, all those are trying out. Nope.
45 active duty personnel died while serving in the U.S. Armed Forces. Number 3.
Really? Wow.
53,402 soldiers died during combat in World War I. Most of those served in the Army. Number 38. The war that saw the most deaths in the U.S. was the Civil War. When you count Union soldiers as well as Confederate soldiers, the deaths is between 755,000 and 800,000 victims. That makes it the worst war the U.S. soldiers have ever fought. Okay, now for something...
Yeah, and it is pretty crazy. Like, I've been to Gettysburg, and I've seen, like, the reenactments, and when you see, like, the amount of people, and imagine, too, like, the battle back then would have been just, you know, multiplied the, you know, thousands and thousands more. So it's just crazy to see, and they do it, you know, it's all like on one field, and imagine 800,000 dead people on like one field. Whoa, that is some medieval stuff right there.
Even more surprising. Number 37. The U.S. Army used to use the swastika as a symbol.
What?
Heard that right. The 45th Infantry used to pin it on their sleeves, but they only did that to honor their Native American brothers in arms. What you have to remember is that before Adolf Hitler hijacked the symbol, it was used for thousands of years in many different cultures.
Right, yeah, it was a Buddhist symbol. I thought it was Buddhist symbol.
Sanskrit, it means conducive to well-being. That's why you can still see it today all something that surprises less educated travelers. It won't surprise you, though, because now you know where it came from.
I'm just surprised that they would have worn it on their uniforms, knowing that I guess that must have been before the Nazis started using it, because, you know. Uh-huh.
Needless to say, when Hitler started using it, the 45th Infantry dropped.
There you go.
Number 36. Batteries. The U.S. Army needs them, and any soldier will tell you that they weigh quite a bit. You see, if you want to...
But I even know from, like, stories from my grandmother on that last point that, I mean, yeah, even before, you know, World War II had happened, there was, like, my grandmother would tell me, you know, like, if she, you know, if there was people in the neighborhood who were German, you'd go into their house, they'd have a picture of Hitler and swastikas, and they didn't think it was, obviously back then they didn't think it was a bad thing at all. So, but just thinking back on how cultish the whole thing became, it's like, man, that's really kind of scary. And it was definitely like, I remember as a kid thinking like, whoa, that's weird.
100 pounds of batteries for 30 men going on a 3-day mission.
Wow, they need to call Elon Musk.
Talking about the Army's battery problem. Number 35. In the late 1960s, the Army introduced something called the
hook them up with a few
truck, or if you want to get technical.
Hello, dear.
Whoa, man, these games. Lots of
Let's get you up to
ads.
speed, shall we? Humanity's salvation starts with your choice of class. Huge, heavy, and highly armored, behemoths demand respect. I hope you brought friends.
They're like World of Tanks, but not World of Tanks.
Nothing
Tell
is
us your World of
too
Tanks
big
without
for a
throwing World of
ranger,
Tanks.
and everything is game.
That's interesting.
Precise snipers, specialists,
Nope.
and a hell of a punch. They are true watchers from the distance.
The cybernetic anthropomorphous machine. The giant robot had 4 big legs. From a sci-fi movie, it wasn't exactly nimble. The plotting machine was designed to solve the Army's age-old problem of carrying stuff. Like in the movie Alien, a person would sit inside it and control it with their feet and hands. It weighed 3,000 pounds, traveled at 5 miles per hour. While it looked like a good idea, it wasn't. It was so tiring to operate that a person could only move for a short amount of time.
That's what I was thinking. I was thinking, how hard would that thing to be? Just sit in and be like, John, okay, I'm done. No, we're just gonna leave. I'll just carry something. I'll just carry it. I got it.
Only 8% of folks aged 17 to 23 in the U.S. qualify to serve in the Army. It has high standards. One recruiting commander said this about those standards: "We don't want to sacrifice quality. If we lower the quality, yes, we might be able to make our mission, but that's not good for the organization." Number 33.
Right, best of the best,
The
right?
Pentagon's budget meant $178 billion would go to the Army, $207.1 billion for the Navy and Marine Corps, a further $191.8 billion for
Wow,
the Air
so
Force.
think about that though. Here, let's get all the time. Okay, here we go. Wow, Space Force is not getting anything. Especially for space, too. I mean, like, you gotta get the rockets up there, you gotta... Satellites, because that's pretty much their whole game now, is like satellites, but so then Air Force, 191 billion. Navy and Marine Corps, at least they're... they both have a lot of aviation in them, Navy, Marine Corps, and Air Force. But even the Army does. But that's just amazing to look at. Like, the Army gets 178 billion, and the Air Force gets 191 billion. But the Navy and Marine Corps kind of have to share both that. I mean, they're obviously on the same, ships. But I feel like that's. I feel like the Marine Corps should get a bit more.
$4 billion for the Space Force. Number 32. Who first looked at the and thought, wow, I just can't wait to tell everyone about this and put it on a map? It was the Army. You see, the U.S. Army was responsible for mapping much of the USA. In the early 1800s, the U.S. government wanted to map the entirety of the USA, which was no easy feat. The Lewis and Clark expedition was the solution, and that was led by the U.S. Army. Number 31. George Washington didn't actually want to be commander of the Army. He didn't think he was up to the task. He was happy when the war was over.
Which is why he was so good. I mean, usually that's like this. I mean, any movie, right? That's like the best leader is the dude who doesn't want to do it, or chick who doesn't want to do it.
But then he resigned. This is what he told Congress: happy in the confirmation of our independence and sovereignty, and pleased with the opportunity afforded to the nation. I resigned with satisfaction the appointment I accepted with diffidence, a diffidence in my abilities to accomplish so arduous a task. A man of humility. As you'll soon see, there were many more military.
Yeah, he was cool.
Number 30. After World War II, and for many years on, the U.S. Army had a dump-a-thon.
He was the coup
In total,
dad.
the Army admitted to secretly dumping 64 million pounds of...
Whoa.
Let's start
That's
with
not
the
something you want to hear.
When we invented
You're saying don't drink
one
the
of the
water,
first
right?
gas agents in the sea. Also thrown in were 400,000 chemical-filled bombs, landmines, and rockets. And with that, 500 tons of radioactive waste. It was revealed that...
See, now that's where no laws in international law. Like, wow, 500 tons of radioactive waste. Wow. Have they heard of whales and stuff? Like, let's not do that. I'm not saying, it's like, I'm not saying don't poison the whales, but I'm saying don't poison the whales, man. Like, jeez.
Storage was expensive and dangerous, and destroying was difficult, so overboard with the stuff. Number 29. During World War I, the German military was unhappy with the U.S. Army. It didn't much like the shotguns the Army were using, claiming that being hit by a shotgun was unnecessarily painful. Number 28.
Well, yeah. I mean, isn't that's kind of the point? And I know, and they're talking about like the trench shotgun, I believe. I mean, they probably had the that one automatic too, but that trench shotgun's amazing, right? And that goes back to like the 1800s, so that was a really good design. But to say a shotgun is unusually painful is kind of like, obvious, I'd say.
Has fully banned the use of landmines. Under President Obama, there was a ban on the use of landmines except for the defense of South Korea. But under the Trump administration, restrictions were lifted. In 1997, the Mine Ban Treaty was signed by countries, but the U.S., along with China, Egypt, India, Israel, Pakistan, and Russia, did not sign. Number 27. The problem
that's not cool. And not only that, but they tend to, maim, and I mean that's like what they're for, right? To like maim and injure, and so you always have a lot of people with no legs, no arms coming home, and I think that's just that's a cruel thing of war, is landmines. That was any type of, a lot of the traps that were come up. That's something that should be outlawed.
They tend to kill your own. In 1997, the New York Times cited a Pentagon report that said thousands of U.S. Army soldiers in Vietnam and Korean wars were killed or severely injured by American-made landmines. Okay, sorry to sound so depressing. We promise something amusing soon. Number 26. Who doesn't like a good dog story? The U.S. Army during World War I, like other countries, employed dogs for various tasks. The Army's most decorated dog was named Stubby. Working for the 102nd Infantry Regiment, Stubby served for 18 months and joined 17 battles on the Western Front. He was injured by a German grenade at one point, but soon made a comeback and went back to the trenches. Stubby was then promoted to sergeant. He could find injured men, could alert soldiers to gas attacks, and could hear the sound of artillery before the soldiers. So he was able to tell the soldiers when rounds were coming in. When Stubby gave the sign, they ducked for cover. Number 25.
That just shows you like how bad trench warfare was too. I just think the whole thing of staying in place in a trench, I mean, thank God tanks were created. Almost, because, it's like, trench warfare was just so terrible and disgusting. And, I don't know from personal experience, but seriously, I mean, it's like, it was just bad idea to have so much fire that, I mean, if you lifted your head up, you're done for. And you're just staying in place waiting for artillery shells to hit you. I mean, it's just a bad idea. And imagine being soldiers, imagine the soldiers who, like, legit lost their mind from that, because it's like there was basically no escape.
Step further with animals many years later. Researchers implanted beetles with nerve and muscle stimulators. That meant they could be controlled remotely. They were also big enough to carry heat sensors and cameras. These things would be great for search and rescue missions, although we're not sure if they are.
Mercedes-Benz is turning electric completely on its head.
Are we ever used them? Number 24. In the 1970s, the UK paid the Mauritius government to take islanders from Diego Garcia in the Indian Ocean. The U.S. military wanted the island, but it didn't want the islanders. Those poor guys were reset, but they mostly ended up in the slums. Number 23. Talking about land, the U.S. Army owns 15 million acres of land in the United States, which is about 24,000 square miles. If you can't conceive the size, it would be the 42nd largest state if the land was in one piece. Number 22. In 2003, a U.S. Army sergeant was on a one-month leave visiting family and friends. While back on American soil, he decided to play the lottery. He won, and he won big. taking home $88.9 million.
Wow.
Number 21, arguably the most shocking U.S. Army.
I mean, that's kind of okay.
Happened in the Vietnam War. On March 16, 1968, U.S. Army soldiers walked into a village and murdered 347 to 504 unarmed citizens, most of them women and children. There are more gory details, but we won't get into that today. You can see for yourself. It's called the My Lai Massacre. Number 20. At the beginning of World War I, the U.S. Army had 117,000 personnel. Then came the Selective Service Act of 1917, a draft. And by the end of the war, the Army had drafted 2.7 million men. Number 19. The Navy had a song, and the Air Force had a song, but the Army didn't. So in 1956, it was decided that the Army Goes Rolling Along should be the official Army song. Number 18. Do Army soldiers get the greatest risen? That's up for debate, but we can tell you that 70% of all medals of honor were awarded to Army soldiers. Number 17. Hungry soldiers are a big problem. You need...
Okay. And that's the end of the video. Bye-bye. Yeah. Get over it.